Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we are doing controversial reptile topics. We're going to go through all of the different things that people have a very controversial opinion on, and we're going to talk through them and talk about them and my personal opinions on these controversial topics. So first of all, we've got bearded dragon water bowls. A lot of people believe bearded dragons shouldn't have water in their tank because it can raise humidity, all of that. But to be honest, I know a lot of people that keep water bottles in their bearded dragon tanks and don't have an issue with it. I keep a water bowl in my bearded dragon's tank and in my old bearded dragon's tank. And apparently they can't see still water, but bearded dragons that I know and have seen, and my old bearded dragon drank directly from the water bowl. So that's something that's very your opinion. I have my opinion. I'd always supply a bearded dragon with a water bowl, as long as it's not raising humidity too high. I have quite a big water dish, but it's very, very, very shallow. I will show you. This is my bearded dragon's water dish. As you can see, it is very shallow. And as you can see, the water dish is quite dirty because he's been running in and out of it, drinking. So that's another thing. They do drink water, and I know people say the whole give them a bath and they don't need a water bowl, whatever, whatever. But you're giving them 2 baths in the summer. And personally, I don't think 2 baths is enough to drink enough water to cater for the whole summer long. Especially in summer, it's best to have water bowls down because, they have heat in their tank. It gets hot outside and the heat gradients will clash if you have a dimming thermostat like I do. Then it will just automatically turn on and off, but the heat is still there and they might want water. So it's best to supply that, in my opinion. My opinion doesn't mean that you have to go and do exactly what I'm doing. This is just how I keep my animals and how I find it beneficial for them. Next controversial topic is UVB. Okay, a lot of people, believe reptiles don't need UVB. They definitely do. In the wild, they get the UV from obviously the sky, the sun. So everything that you're replicating inside your enclosure is actually happening in their native homeland. So they have UVB in the wild, they have heat in the wild. So it's best to replicate that as best as you can. UVB is different for every reptile. Yaman chameleons get a 12%, bearded dragons get a 12%, leopard geckos get about a 6%, crested geckos get about a 2%, but it's the nocturnal ones that need a lower percentage or don't need UVB at all, depending on your preference. Bearded dragons, however, any daytime active species, 100% needs UVB, whether it's a low percentage, high percentage. There's plenty of care guides that will tell you what UVB you need for your lizard or snake or any reptile. Tortoises definitely need UVB again because they're a daytime active species, but that's for you to research yourself. You want the animal, you do research. You can't just get the animal and expect the animal to do the research for you. Another one is heat mats. Now, I don't have a heat mat because I've never owned a heat mat. This is a very, 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 very controversial thing. I feel like this is one less bit controversial than UVB. These are the main two arguments within the reptile community. So, overhead heating, which you can see there, is definitely better because they are able to absorb it. And some reptiles can't feel heat through their stomach. So if they're just above the heat mat, that can burn their stomach because they can't actually feel heat on their stomach. That's for some reptiles, not all. Heat mats I don't recommend unless it's like you're getting a baby corn snake and you have to keep it in a tub. They say keep a heat mat underneath or on the side. I agree with on the side because your snake's not going to burn itself. It's less risk. I'm not saying that your snake isn't going to burn itself, but less risk. But overall, I have to say I don't really agree with heat mats for invertebrates. Stuff like that, I probably do. but not for lizards or snakes or anything like that. I forgot to mention this, but make sure if you are using a heat mat for an invertebrate or anything like that, baby corn snake in a tub or anything like that, make sure you're using a mat stack to control your temperatures, to make sure it isn't too hot or too cold, to make sure your reptiles are getting the perfect amount of temperature. Make sure you're always providing overhead heating. And if I can advise you to do one thing, it would be to get overhead heating over a heat mat, because it just penetrates to the skin better. Substrate. People keep them on substrate, people keep them on paper towels, newspapers, bare bottoms, da 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 da. I'm gonna complain, I've never kept a reptile on substrate. I did with him when I first got him, and you know, every time the water bowl was spilling, the pellets was expanding. That's what the reptile shop gave me, and that was my first ever reptile. So always remember as well, if it's your first reptile and you're making mistakes, mistakes are fixable. You learn from your mistakes, so don't look at yourself as a bad owner and think, oh, I'm doing everything wrong, da da da, it's gonna die, because 9 times out of 10 it's just a mistake. Leopard geckos are very good for tolerating mistakes. I mean, he tolerated that terrible substrate for about a year, so that's fine. But substrates I wouldn't recommend on their own is cocoa fiber, and I need to cover out the logo on this. Any wood chips I just wouldn't really recommend, or beach chips, because if they can cut themselves on there, it's wood, they can cut themselves, they can swallow it maybe, and that can cause impaction. So it's best to stay away from stuff like that. But a safe one that a lot of people use, which you can get for literally under £10 from B&Q, and you can get your play sands from Smith's, is organic peat-free topsoil and play sand. I personally want to try this. I want to do this with my crested gecko and my leopard gecko. So I do think I'm going to try it, and any reptiles that I further get on, I will definitely try substrate with them. The reason why my bearded dragon isn't on any substrate is because it's brand new. I got it on my birthday 2 days ago, and I just want to monitor it, quarantine it, and make sure that it's just doing everything that it should. I mean, it's taking a lot of poos, very, very smelly ones. So, yeah. Another one is enclosure size. People know enclosure size minimums, but they go the whole different route. People tend to go the cheaper route. If you can't afford reptiles, if you can't afford to feed them, get the right things, UVB, heat bulbs for them, don't get them. You know, they're an animal. That's like having a child and not, you know, getting stuff for it, not buying baby food or anything like that. It's the equivalent, but people don't look at it like that because it's just an animal that runs around in an enclosure, but it's not. Reptiles and pets and everything like that, they're living. You need to take them on as a responsibility. So don't keep a bearded dragon in a 2 foot enclosure, because that happens a lot. Don't keep a leopard gecko in a tub. I've saw that multiple times. Crested geckos being kept in like 30 by 15 by 15. It's terrible. You know, if you look in TikTok on these random people that don't have a clue about reptiles or any animals at all, you will see them keeping their reptiles in the worst conditions known to man. It is terrible. It makes me feel sick. And, you know, I have had a few arguments in TikTok comments because of it, but that's besides the point. Another one, I know this is an animal, but I'm going to include it anyway, is chameleons. Chameleons are quite controversial when it comes to beginners, because people see a chameleon and think, oh, I love the colours, you know, let's get one. They don't realise chameleons like can drop dead if you don't have the humidity, heat, or tank set up properly. They are very I'm trying to think of the word, but if there's any bacteria in the tank, they will automatically catch that and just die. So if you're a beginner, stay as far away as a chameleon as you can. I know they're beautiful, their colours are amazing, and they don't take that much space because they're an arboreal species, but just stay away from them. You know, if you can't provide what you need to provide, then don't get the animal. If you're a beginner and you're willing to put all of your time, effort, and money into a chameleon, then do it. Now, one thing that I absolutely hate, which a lot of breeders do, and I don't agree with, is rats. Don't breed an animal if you cannot afford to put them in proper enclosures. This is very different with crested geckos though, as if you breed crested geckos, you can keep them in tubs for quite a while. They're breeding them to get different morphs, and they love raking in the money and all of this stuff, and then they're using the two main adult ones to just breed and breed and breed and breed and breed, and then they'll have a male to about 20 females, breed them, just shove them in drawers. That's literally what racks are, is a drawer with a heat mat behind. They're getting no UVB, no overhead lighting, improper care, lack of space, everything like that. And I've seen ball pythons, 5-foot ball pythons, be kept in about a 1-foot rack, and it's so frustrating when you see it, because you just want to, like, you know, there's so many things that you want to say, but TikTok restricts comments, and I've learned that a few times. Live feeding. Now, this doesn't apply to lizards because lizards have to eat live. They will not eat a dead bug, and a dead bug does not have the protein or the benefits in it to fill your lizard up. But for snakes, I just think that is a big no-go. You know, a lot of people do it because it's cheaper to breed rats and mice because they breed pretty quickly and you don't have to pay for the frozen food. No, the frozen food is worth every single penny that you can to keep your snake happy and healthy, you know. For one, they can't digest bones properly, where frozen mice and rats have their bones scooped out most of the time, I'm pretty sure. Where live don't do that, and feeding live is just gonna make your snake more defensive, because once it sees that rat running around, if you put your hand in that enclosure, it's going to think you're a rat because it's moving. So yeah, and that's why they say to defrost your rats before you put it in, because the heat of the hot water will lure the snake over. They sense heat, and that's how they catch their prey. The next one is zoos. Now, this is something that I personally agree with. I love going to the zoo. Not all zoos have the best reptile care, but the one that I recently went to was very, very, very good. The reptiles were friendly, we were able to hold them, stuff like that, because we did an experience. And the enclosures were amazing. Now, some zoos will just throw a red heat bulb in an enclosure with a few sticks and aspen substrate and call it a zoo reptile house. That is not it. You know, you're a zoo, you're a multi-million-pound company, and you're telling me that you can't afford to do big reptile enclosures. Not all zoos are terrible. Not all zoos take them out of the wild for no reason. Some animals are in a zoo because they have health problems in the wild, and then that's where zoologists come in, because zoologists go and find these animals, and then that's when the zoo takes place. And a lot of zoo animals get passed from other zoos as well. So I personally don't think it's terrible, but I'm not saying zoos are the best thing in the world, because most of them aren't. Most of them are very bad towards animals, and I wouldn't leave my dog in there. So anyway, that was the video. Thank you for watching. I hope you learnt something from the UVB heat mats and enclosure size. You know, if you don't follow it, then don't be shocked when your animal dies. If you do follow it, then I hope your animal's happy and healthy.